Hello, hello, and thank you, Jonny5. To those that know me, you might know me as Jim. You can either call me Jim or Jonny5. I do honestly prefer Jonny5. So anyway, moving off of that. So the Homelab. You probably have for some time ran a router at home. You've had to either port forward in your Xbox, your PlayStation. You started realizing you could host a website from your house and experiment and grow and build your potential as a I'm going to try to get this a little bit closer to me here. Build your potential as an actual service provider from your own zone. That way you can actually host the services exactly the way you want. So that's what we're really going to get into, is not just how to be able to handle hosting those services, but to how to securely host those services. And all right, so about me, I'm a security engineer and automation guru. And I do gaming, DJing, and I like to roller skate. I just don't know how to rollerblade, so don't hate me on that. I have contributed to a few projects on GitHub. If you're interested, hopefully that scans, and really honestly, hopefully the next one scans. Homelab goals completed. I got to build, rebuild, and build again. If you've built a home lab, you'll realize that you at some point will have to tear it all down, build it all back up at least once. So I've learned, practiced, I've contributed and connected with other individuals, been able to take the OpenSense project and upgrade some of the IDS parts of the Suricata detection rules. And then I've been able to actually instrument a layer 3, layer 4 automated response. So my firewall automatically updates if you attack me. And finally, the reason why I'm giving this presentation, been able to instrument a layer 6, layer 7 response, where if you try to attack a surface in my HTTP environment from an IP address that I'm not going to shun you from, Cloudflare, something else, I can say, no, you can't have that. And my web app actually responds as such. So after all of this, I want to go ahead and actually get into where I'm taking my data and submitting it to others so that way they can be protected too, besides those that use CrowdSec. So that way I'm contributing to MISP or even an ISAC. SecKC locally runs an ISAC. There's a couple other ones you may know about. All right, so you want to play a game? You want to play along? Get out your phone. We're going to go ahead and do a QR code thing. Once you get this going, there's a few more other quizzes that we'll be able to do. Feel free to play along. If you don't want to do this, that's totally cool. We'll just talk out the question. So there's the QR thing. I really appreciate everyone for playing along. You're so awesome. Please let me know if this does or does not work. It should work. It's worked just a moment ago, but I've learned in life that nice. Try once, try a second time. It won't work for at least one person. Anyway, thumbs up. Did everyone get to a page that says there's no current quiz? It should take you to an HTTPS web page. That did work, right? It's loading. Okay. I may be DDoSing myself apparently, but hopefully the fiber connection at home is able to handle this. Proceed. Yeah, does not support. Oof. This is also braid too. So. Okay. Well, it should. Wow. So my Trafic is not working the way it should. All right. So I really am not sure how or why that's working. If you modify this is a really great live presentation moment. Definitely live demo in full effect here. You may notice that there's an odd port in there as you try to go to that. Go ahead and remove the port, put an S in the HTTP, and there it goes. All right, that was. I'll be working on my own. I'll be tearing something down and rebuilding it later, as one is wont to do. That's what you should see, as it says there's no current poll. Okay, all right. So we're going to go ahead and move into the poll. All right, so your browser should update and you should get to go ahead and see a couple options. The question is, what's your favorite security tool? I'll reveal on this one, there's no wrong answer here. In fact, they're all the right answer, but I'm just kind of curious so that way we can talk about it. What is your favorite tool? I'm gonna go ahead and click one. All right, so we had a few. I do want to move this along. We have a few more polls. I don't want to get caught up on this one. Uh, so it looks like a few of us really like the pie hole, and honestly, that is one of the most powerful ways you can protect yourself is DNS. It's a great surface. So I'm gonna go ahead and move into the next one. How you go ahead and structure your home lab and what this presentation is going to cover is the goals and objectives of the lab. We're going to cover some of the systems and services that you need to actually integrate and build out to actually achieve this end. And I'm going to go over my components that I use: the OpenSense, a MikroTik, and a Ubiquity switch. Also my NAS, my hypervisor, and one thing that they don't really ever talk about in a home lab that I think is critical, and I'll go into a little bit more detail in a bit, is you need something to provide DNS at the very beginning, like even outside of your router being on, and even without your router even running, you want that DNS to just be there and work. Your router comes up, DNS is already there, your internet works. All right, so here's another play along. What should happen is you only need to refresh your browser. You shouldn't have to rescan that. All right, how do you container? And hopefully your poll has updated on your device. Nice, look at that. Oh, I love it. All right. 14, 16. I love that you actually get a count on this thing. By the way, I'm using Reveal.js. If anyone's ever done presentations, this actually works. Okay. I have never done this before. Okay. So how do you container? We got 18 already. That's, I think, a land share of our audience. Docker is got the win there, and everyone else is VMing. All right, cool, cool. I do want to praise the word of Docker Compose. Docker Compose will let you go ahead and take all those neat little Docker containers that you might be building and actually create kind of a library of your systems. I'll go into a little more detail on that. Okay, so final structure, we're going to go into the Docker environments and configurations. I did some Elastic logging. I talked about it just for a second. I use Traefik as my reverse proxy. It is a bit of a new thing for me. I used to be using Nginx for some time. Obviously, as you can tell with my little port snafu there and the HTTPS, certain situations can go a little sideways. So I'm going to have to definitely take a look at that. All right, so what are we protecting? We're protecting our users. I've been running GitLab for over 10 years. My brother needed it. I needed it. I've had some friends need it. We've actually used it for a SecKC project. People know that my domain has GitLab on it, and they are pinging it all the time. That's part of the reason why I realized I had a great advantageous reason to run a home lab and start tracking the attackers, because GitLab's a ripe surface, and that's only like doubled, quadrupled in about the last 2 years. So also run Plex, that's a sensitive surface too, WordPress, and Nginx. All right, why does security matter? This is neat. AI actually generated this quote for me. I had AI look at my whole thing, give me some tips. It was kind of fun. So the only way to protect your digital assets is to make it harder to attack than to defend. And guess what? It doesn't get much more true than that. You want them to be climbing a mountain that you barely had to build to try to get into your house. All right, so how do we deploy those? I do have some VM things. I'm still doing GitLab and VM. I'm still doing Plex and VM. It's about resources. I don't want those to ever be resource dry. That said, as the past couple of years running Docker, I haven't really, once you go ahead and set and deploy Docker with resource constraints, it has those resources. In fact, it won't even start if those resources aren't available. So it's more or less just me waiting to have time to go ahead and convert those over. All right, so let's talk about the Docker Compose. I have put all of my Docker environments in one Git repo. In that one Git repo, I have zone folders for every zone that I've got: core, inner, DMZ, etc. So now in each zone folder, I have the actual stack folder that Docker Compose runs. And so you can see zone folder, stack folder, Docker Compose, and then I put a .env. If you're not familiar with this, a .env lets you go ahead and use what some amounts to bash variables in your Docker Compose file. So now you don't actually have to commit the code. In this example, the .env would be something you'd put on your server. You wouldn't have it in the Git repo, but you can deploy everything, copy over your env file, deploy, and securely, no passwords ever stored in your Git repo, all your stuff. It's just amazing. Love doing it. Wanted to go ahead and have that teaching moment too. All right, so The next part about Docker that I'm really going to get into is the amazing thing called a Docker Mac VLAN. So if you've wondered, man, I have to port forward with all my Docker stuff. Yeah, you do. You're literally using your host network's adapter and your host network's actual network stack and identifier, the IP address on your network. So if you go ahead and use what's called a Mac VLAN, we'll go into a little bit more into it in a second. Now you can have each container having its own IP address, which means all of your containers get to use their standard ports. You don't have to configure all custom ports for all the things you want to deploy because 80 is already in use. Okay, that also means you have firewall transparency. That means your IDS and all your NetFlow looks normal when you're trying to investigate what's going on. Why didn't something work? Did someone bump something over? Really does take all the guesswork out of it. So here's an example about a little bash script that you can use to make a Mac VLAN on your VM, on your Linux VM. In this situation, ETH1 is the one we're attaching it to. You'll notice that there is a name at the very bottom, Docker DMZ 180. I tend to name mine with the VLAN tag that I'm using. This one is not what I'm using. I think I've scrubbed everything actually that I care about that's identifiable back to my Homelab off of this, but here we go. So there's the IP address is subnet. So of criticality, you have to, one, don't try and subnet outside of a /24 on your network. For your zones, just don't do it. Reverse DNS will laugh at you. You'll laugh at yourself later when you realize reverse DNS hates not being in a /24. So after that, you got your gateway, and you can go ahead and set your IP range. Now, this is where you set the usable space for that Mac VLAN. And you will have to assign your containers within that usable space. It doesn't DHCP, okay? So you will set the IP address on your container, you'll deploy it, and you'll have to use a range in that space. All right, another quiz. Hopefully, if you still got the tab open, your browser should just go ahead and refresh in now. So, okay, so which WAN router? And I did try to get specific to WAN router because you can have a router inside your network on the perimeter of your network. This is the perimeter router. Which one is everyone using? I'm okay with 16 already. Man, everyone's doing awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate it. 17, 18. We had about 18 last time, just so we save time. 19, heck yeah. I'm going to go ahead and keep going. Heck yeah. All right. So I use OpenSense myself. Seems like a lot of people are using Ubiquitys. It's just a really great one as well. I would be using this if I paid for that hardware. I had computers sitting around, and I'm like, what am I going to do? Spend money, or I'm going to use what I got? And I did have to get some NIC cards over time, but again, that let me slow build. I was able to get my 10G fiber. I was able to get my quad one gigabit NICs and eventually install those and add features. So that really worked well for me. It's so awesome to see a couple other OpenSense users. Cradlepoint, MikroTik. I was curious if we'd see anything in there, and I'd see some home store-bought routers there too. Heck yeah. Okay, so how did I do my OpenSense? It's a pretty simple build. I got an 8-core. You do want high core count on your router, by the way. If you're really getting into this and you have an IDS or anything else in play, you're going to want to be able to have a core per interface if possible, as close as you can get to that. After that, the power of the CPU, I'm using something that's 10 years old, does just fine. And luckily, I don't on it have much more than about 8 interfaces. So after that is my MikroTik, my Ubiquity, and then I have, unfortunately, I haven't bought Ubiquity Wi-Fi yet. It's on the Christmas laundry list for the past 2 years. Hasn't happened yet. So what does that look like? So there's the WAN. You see the OpenSense. I have 3 sends. So I send each zone that needs a 1 gig path down to the Ubiquity. And the neat thing about a switch is, right, a smart switch, is you can have a segment of that switch for that zone. That now means that you're using the whole backplane as much as you want. So you're able to go ahead and send all 3 gigabits. You have 1 gigabit path into each of those zones. You're not using up, there's no bottleneck. And that also means I can go ahead and send that 10 gig down to the MikroTik and send 2 1 gig over to my PVE, my Proxmox, and one over to the NAS. So the Proxmox now has its own connection to the VM disks. Each of the VMs have a connection to the data they might need to access on their own separate paths. I get to watch both of them discreetly. I know when stuff's going not right or why. Pretty amazing. Really been enjoying this setup. And I have to click out of these to move on to there we go. Okay, so the components I mentioned earlier, that Lenovo Thin PC, that's my inner. I called it. There's probably a better word for this, but I called it inner for my zone, and I'm actually sharing it. And what it has, and I'll go into a little bit, is all the primary services that the rest of the network needs. My NAS was really great. That has been a feature I've been building over time. The hypervisor was a neat run through Micro Center. Can't believe I got to do that day. And then I finally have moved. I moved from Docker to an actual metal for my home assistant, because guess what? You want to plug USBs in, and you don't want a whole bunch of a headache. Just get just install it as a OS, and now you can go ahead and home assistant without it. So just to have a little extra share, I did put that up on Instagram, so I don't really mind sharing it here. That's the stack. Mine doesn't look that pretty. Everybody out there that has a full rack and has all the lights on it, like, you're amazing. I will eventually catch up. That's not where that's not my direction right now. I will get there. All right, you want to play along again? If you open up your tab, we can go ahead and do one more. I think I have 2 more quizzes after this. So I mentioned earlier, DNS filtering. It's probably the most important thing to do on your network. IDS is great. All the other stuff is awesome. DNS filtering, you do that, you have stopped easily half the issues. Which one are you using? So we're already up to 18. I think we got 19. Awesome. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and mark Pi-hole. And most everyone marked Pi-hole. So I was really curious. I didn't realize Blocky existed. Core DNS or NextDNS, just had never heard of them, or the Technetium. I do want to mention, and I guess I'm gonna get into the slides real quick as we move on. So inner services, I mentioned. I'm gonna skip right through this because I basically went through it. I do put NTP on my inner network on the actual immediate boot. So there are a couple other services that are highly critical. So that handles now local. Oh, and I have a bind. I have my secondary bind. So I have my primary bind, but my secondary bind runs on inner. So it's always there, and it never changes. Nothing can screw it up. Only primary, if it gets updated, will tell it to update, right? That's how it works. So now my always on, almost instant boots inner metal will just be up, and I can turn it on when I turn on my router, and everything just works. All right. So the OpenSense, what have I done? So Unbound. So the neat thing is, one, Unbound is absolutely incredible. Default configuration in OpenSense, it hits root DNS. That means you actually have DNS privacy. No one has a clue what you're doing unless they're your ISP and they're watching 53. Man, that rhymed. So what you do then is you just do DOT. Now that does mean that whatever your DOT provider is, they're now able to log what you're doing, but that means no one else. So if you be very smart about selecting that, et cetera, there you go. Now you've got encrypted DNS going out to the internet, back to Unbound. It has its own filtration. Thank you, whoever designed that plugin in OpenSense. You're amazing. Because the default config does not include that, by the way. If you try to deploy Unbound on Docker, doesn't have it. So then I have my Pi holes go ahead and hit Unbound, and then everybody hits the Pi holes. Both of those environments for my local DNS, because I have a home domain. And by the way, if you move to or already have one, the TLD to use is .home. The oh gosh, Aaron and all of the rest of them, ARPA, have said .home will never be a TLD that we allow a public domain to resolve to. So if you use .home, it'll never propagate outside of your own home ever. Pretty neat and safe. So I also set up MDNS because basically everything needs it. And then I configured the DNS to go ahead and hit DNS via the ISC DHCP. I haven't moved over to their new one yet. Okay, so a little neat thing. What does your DNS look like? That's my is that 24 hours? Yeah, 24 hours of DNS usage. Roughly about 43% blocked from, and this is just the unbound back end blocking. This isn't the pie holes will still have another 4% block that they go ahead and deliver to the network because pie hole has its own list, and I'm not really trying to cross streams there. So okay, so the already went through that. With that, I did make this week, so I've only practiced this about half a time. So I did do one modification on my environment. I set up Suricata to go ahead and actually, instead of using open senses, and I did make a blog about this, post about this. If you check out that Nofo Labs website at the beginning, you can read the blog entry. But I set it up so you can go ahead and use Suricata update instead of open senses policy adapter. If you're at all familiar with Oinkmaster or pulled pork from back in the day, that means you can rewrite your own rules exactly how you want to with regex. So now you've got an OpenSense router that has completely custom rules. I have over 120,000 rules running. I have Unbound, I have Pi-hole, all under the hood, now providing out to multiple VLANs, and I also have all those events coming upstream. So okay, so it's a router, and it also does firewalls. So that means I can go ahead and set up all of my rules. I will suggest with the OpenSense, it has a floating rule set. In the floating rule set area, you can go ahead and assign which interfaces you want those floating rules to go to. That now means you have one dashboard for rules that can go out to one or more interfaces. And if you configure a rule, you can set up 3 interfaces and they all have the exact same rule, and you change one rule, they all get it. Management is now much simpler, and it also is lighter on the CPU because you have less rules. That's a big deal. RAM, your router, and your electric bill will thank you. So I do one neat extra thing. So DNS is a thing, right? And some people will go ahead and hard code a DNS address into their device or their software, right? So how do you deal with that? Oh, well, so it's a port forward, right? You port forward within your own network anything to 53, 853, 443, and 5353. I think I'm getting all of them. Back to yourself. Well, obviously 443 and the not 53s, you actually have to do matching on IP addresses. And that means you're going to have to go ahead and resolve those, the DOH, DOT, FQDNs back to IPs, put that in a list and match on it. But really, is that very hard? It's not. So what does that look like? There we go. This is probably not very legible. I was kind of hoping this would clear up much better, and it's totally not. But there's a rule, this one that the slider is moving over, that says that if you are in the DNS standard area, you get to talk to DNS standard. And I do this for both the DNS and DOT. I do DOH and DNS crypt as their own rules because they actually work off of not like also shared ports. Love whoever decided to do that. So after that, I have 2 more rules that says if you are not DNS standard and you're not part of my DNS infrastructure, you get port forwarded back to 53 on the OpenSense. You just talk to Unbound. Because Unbound, with its glorious finesse, will go ahead and respond to any one of those on the same port. So 53 does DNS, DOT, DOH, DNS crypt, does all of it, and you just have to have the clients hit there. So you never get DNS outside of what I tell you how to get to the thing. So I've cleaned up basically most of the hackers, malware, misconfiguration issues. Why doesn't the DNS work? Well, I control it. Is it me or is it your device? So the MikroTik, it's pretty basic. I got 10G to it. I have 3 10Gs out of it, 1 to the NAS, 2 to the hypervisor. The Ubiquity does all the rest of the stuff. I did go so far as to completely segment out DMZ into a completely different send because I didn't want VLANs getting put through the bridge on the MikroTik. I didn't want any of that cross-pollination. I wanted that DMZ back into core, back out to DMZ, back out to the internet to go across the IDS. I wanted Suricata to inspect it. I am literally closing the TLS SSL as it comes in, and then sending it plain text within my network. And now my IDS gets to see all of it. If whatever you're doing, I see it with my stuff. That obviously this does not work for the user browse stuff. If you're browsing stuff out to the internet, this does not take care of that. I'm assuming most everybody realizes that already, but I'll mention it. All right, so the Proxmox has those 210G NICs plus the quad 1G. So that allows it to take the DMZ in plus all of the rest of the networking. On the Proxmox, I've got 2 different Docker VMs, one for core, one for DMZ. I've got an Elasticsearch cluster with 5 nodes. Definitely recommend running more than 3 nodes. And honestly, once you start running over 5 nodes and you maybe have like a RAID 5 or something like that, the number of spindles you have spinning should be much more than the number of nodes you're trying to run. You will notice it take a pit dive. You try and run 6, 7, you only have 5 spindles going. It slows down significantly, especially on load and really high data search. All right, so I've also got Grafana with Prometheus and InfluxDB, Plex, GitLab. Chasm is amazing. And by the way, so Chasm does some really crazy stuff, right? Including allow you to run Tor Onion browser and so much. Yeah, you got to go ahead and put that in your unfiltered list and have that above all of your other firewall rules. That way it gets clean access out to the internet. So whenever you're on your browser and you're like, this website at github.io isn't loading, you go over to Chasm and it works. So it also makes it so you can just close that and nothing got infected. So if you end up going to something that was a little weird, it's taken care of. I did figure out, this is the only LXC I've got. I've got folding at home running on Proxmox as an LXC. I've been doing that for just a little bit now. So that all looks something like this. A couple of VMs with some fuzzing on there, so that way I'm not revealing all of everything. Guess oh yeah, my IP address is not showing up there, I guess. Ah, nice. Okay, so anyway, I thought I cleared most of the irrationally sensitive stuff off of there. All right, so let's go into Docker. Every Docker VM and even the metal, that little thin Lenovo thin PC, are running a Portainer agent, so that way they dial back to Portainer, and I can easily GUI remote control. By the way, I should have had one for Portainer versus Rancher and all the other ones. I just never created it. I will say from experience, Portainer is just great for managing. That's really all I use it for: start, stop, restart, that kind of stuff. So the node exporter allows me to go ahead and monitor everything. Container advisor helps that do that. Bind secondary, I actually already went through most of those. So Kuma uptime, if you're trying to know when your stuff is up or down or not, Kuma uptime, link that in with NTFY. You go ahead and install an app on your phone and you will get a notification when your stuff goes down at home. It's just incredible. And Ansible Remote, by the way, if you're wanting to know how to remote control your whole Homelab, this is the only saving grace I've found. And I set mine up as a Docker container, so I can SSH into this Docker container, and then I can remote control all of the VMs from the Docker container. Job's done. You will find you probably have to, especially for your OpenSense, host some, like, I don't know, IP address lists for all the DOT, DOH stuff that's on the internet. And so you go ahead and set up a Nginx system to host that website. You have your metal do the work, have the data, host it for yourself. There you go. Also do my own mail server. And there's a neat switch fix that you can do for Minecraft, so that way you can tell all of the switches and the Xboxes to use your Minecraft server instead of theirs. Yeah, one more. hmm and the DNS dist, by the way, that's so that if it's so I can load balance my own bind. So if the pi holes or the unbounds are trying to reach my local domain servers, it hits DNS dist, which picks whichever one's actually the most responsive and available. Pretty awesome. Uh, I am way over time. Why don't I actually get to the meat and potatoes? Um, I thought this was going to go a little faster. So, okay. So, pew pew map, because we're going to go ahead and get into some stuff. So reactive environments, it means you're actually responding to the data that's coming in. Uh, CrowdSec is basically like fail to ban. Fail to ban was a beautiful thing, lets you go ahead and protect your SSH services. So this will actually let you have a server plus agent and integration environment, so that way you can install it as an actual thing into your OS, or you can deploy it as a Docker container for a number of purposes. Has an ecosystem where there's plugins in other stacks that reach into their stuff. So they've done across the aisle integrations, really awesome stuff. Traffic is one of those examples. So you can upgrade your backend database to go ahead and speed it up. That's their main front end website, app.crowdsec.net. They have a neat CTI. If you've got an IP address, you're wondering if it's bad or good, you can just go there. You get 25 requests a week for free, and you can go ahead and see if it's bad or good. All right. So you have a server which runs what's called a LAPI for integrations. That's basically what all your local multi-server clients will connect back to is your LAPI that your server is running. Then it promotes those communications from alerts to decisions, which basically means it's blocking the IP address or it's doing a CAPTCHA for a service. So the server, when it's enrolled in CrowdSec's environment, we'll go ahead and pull their API, and they call this CAPI for the decisions and block lists. And inevitably, the block lists come in as decisions, just so that if you ever see that, it looks kind of funny, but everything is a decision, and so even their block lists. So it sends any of your alerts up to them, as well as your decisions. Because if you're a corporate or a paid customer, you can actually manage your CrowdSec environment from their web page service. Pretty awesome. I use it free. I don't get that, but I do contribute, which means I have well, you'll see eventually how big my block list is. If you don't contribute, you do get a limited block list. So anyway, and that means you're seeing an active block list. So I worked at a place before. We used to make one of these. It's the same. It's what is attacking people right now. It's pretty awesome. And by type in this one with a lot of meta. All right, so an agent can be a log parser or an AppSec endpoint. An AppSec endpoint will respond to Nginx proxy manager or Caddy or Trafic. And so the neat part about this is that it actually hears the requests, realizes based on installed policies and scenarios that request is CVE, thus and such, and will actually respond back with a block page instead of telling the reverse proxy to go ahead and send them to the server. So they actually get a neat little block page. So there's another type of agent called a bouncer, and the bouncer basically integrates to the current block list source, and then it will then manage your firewall. So now you can go ahead and block, at layer 3, 4, and then as previously 6 and 7. Okay. Okay. So the environment is only slightly complicated to deploy. There's Docker heavy stuff, and I will publish this so that way you can go ahead and browse at your own leisure. One important thing I do want to comment is the CSCLI. So you will either have it installed on a VM or Docker, and so you'll either have to CSCLI collection install the various collections. There's collections, parsers, scenarios. I think that's all of them. And then you can either Docker exec your Docker container name, CLSI, et cetera, and interact with all your services. So they have the hub. You can go ahead and find either the logs, alerts, et cetera, to install. There's great detail. It's very open source. It's just right there. Download it, install it, inspect it, et cetera. You can make your own parsers. You can make your own post overflows. You can go ahead and filter out your IP address, your company's ASN, whatever you want. Just build it, Google it. You're going to be able to find it. So you can install features that will optimize your system, such as some read-to, chunk decision streams, and et cetera. The one neat thing is context. And I mentioned here how to do a context detect. This is kind of actually incredibly helpful, especially for contributing useful information back to the share for everybody's block lists. So on the OpenSense, it has fast logs. You actually have to build this file, so that way it on the OpenSense will inspect your IDS. But once you go ahead and get your fast logs 8, then your CrowdSec on OpenSense will now be taking your IDS and posting it back up to the main group. By the way, there's a lot of collections. I've been running this for about half a year to a year. I've learned about all the various Trafic, endless SSH. By the way, you want to waste a hacker's time on port 22? Thank you. I love that. It's just, you already know about it. That's amazing. Okay, so I'm really going to have to tie this up. So scenarios. Let's see if I can go ahead. Oh, they did change things recently. The allow lists are now a really built-in feature. You can create it. Your main server will share it to all the clients, and you can go ahead and label why you're making that allow list. Yeah, they actually are using the word allow list instead of the other term. Okay, so this is me making one of my own allow list areas. There's my FQD and post overflow filter. You can add your machines, and then you can make your bouncers. There's a bunch of.
Please stop. I'm bored.
And
by the
thank
way,
you.
Closing ceremonies are going on right now. Make sure you get a raffle ticket.
Thank you, everybody.